Okay, so thank you for being here this afternoon. Slightly later than usual, we start because of the technical glitch. So I really appreciate your being here, and apologies for that technical glitch, for sending that link later. So Shame, you are aware that we have been having this program in the evening. It's just that during Ramadan, we have it in the afternoon. I want to ask your help to keep me awake so that I don't fall asleep. Alhamdulillah. So just the two of us now. So this afternoon, we are talking about what to do about your difficult child. So since there are just the two of us, why don't we turn it into a discussion? So when you read the title, what to do about difficult child, the thing is that what first strikes your mind? Who are these difficult children?
No, normally, to me, difficult child is the second child in the family.
And did you have that experience?
Sort of, yes.
Okay.
Or rather, it was. But
okay.
but later in life, when I reflect, it becomes one of the fun child to have, the second child.
Just curious, what's the age gap between your first and the second?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Because people tend to say that the second child is difficult, and in my case also, my experience, it was the same with my second daughter. The reason why I asked you the age gap, because this is my theory. I've not tested it out, but you see, the child, your first one was at the age of about 2.5 when he or she, the eldest lucky, kan?
Lucky. Dua lucky.
Dua lucky. So when he had the younger brother, he was only 2.5. Typically, children at the age of 2.5, they've not fully completed their individuating yet.
Okay.
Okay. So this is my guess. When I look at my daughter as well, she was about my eldest daughter was 1 year old when she had a sister. So as your elder child was going through the individuating process, her demand on the mother is very high. And the second child, because still a baby, is easily ignored. So that, to a large extent, contributed to what people call the second child syndrome. It is not about the curse on the second child.
There were the traditional mind lines.
So there is something that I just want to blast out of the water, that okay, second child are the problem child. It is not because they are second, but it is because how they are being cared for is not fully complete, because the elder child is demanding a lot during the individuating period. The first child is demanding a lot. So the second child, until the age of about 6 months old, their demand is more passive. So they are easily ignored. However, their needs are not being met fully at that time. So when we talk about Erik Erikson's social development, social emotional development, psychosocial development, we are talking about, at that stage, the need of being cared for is reduced. And because of that, the lack of trust, and the lack of hope being developed in the child during that period. So that part is being stunted. So when we look at what people talk about the difficulties that we face with the second child, what I tend to notice is due to that first few, I would say the first few months, because when it comes to the third child, the mother is already seasoned.
Yeah. I think that is practically a well-founded theory.
Thank you for giving that observation. So these difficult children, people tend to label because of certain behaviors. Yeah? And the typical behaviors, one is defiance. They defy. They do not, whatever that you ask them to do, they do not want to do. That's defiance.
Yeah.
Was that what you experienced with your second child?
Yeah, like for example, you ask him to do A and he will do B. And you ask him to do A, he will do B, and B, he do A.
So that was what happened with my second child as well. You know, very strong defiance, to the extent that during that time, I readily admit that I was totally clueless. Even when I punish her for her defiance, she'll continue. Her defiance becomes stronger. So that is one behavior that causes people to label the child as difficult child, defiance. You're about to say something, Sheikh?
Yeah, even when the cat were to go near him, then the cat will be his target.
Okay. Right. Another behavioral trait that people tend to, when they observe, they label the child as difficult, is the trait of fussiness, being fussy. So this is another trait that causes people to label the child as fussiness. They want things in a very certain way. And when I was looking up references regarding this fussiness, reminds me of my eldest granddaughter, Grasshopper. Imagine at one stage, too, she's so fussy, so picky about eating. For example, the mama puts rice on the plate and then puts, let's say, chicken on it. The two must not touch.
Oh, yeah.
If by accident there is some gravy onto the rice, she'll go, "Mama, it's dirty." So you have to put the rice to one side, the fish to one side. If any vegetables, you need to put it to one side. You cannot get them to touch one another. So Mama has got to pick the rice, feed her, pick the fish, feed her, and pick the veg and feed her.
So she loved that SOP.
Yes.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Very clear-cut SOP. So that's another character trait. Do you notice anyone in your family?
Yeah. But to the parent who has not been, I mean, going through the parenting skill, they will be at loss to actually negotiate this kind of bad behavior.
Yeah.
They're at loss, and they started to say, "Oh, this is difficult child."
This is a difficult child. And this is what I think what we are going to be discussing this afternoon, this label. Yeah. The issue is also not just on the child's behavior, but also the issue of the label itself. The third type of behavior that is cause people to label the child as difficult is they hurt other people. The behavior hurts others. For example, slap other people or hit or bite others. So the behaviors are hurting others. And then the also a common one is excessive anger. They have any little thing happen and they burst out in anger, and bringing to the next behavior trait is that from anger, it turns into a tantrum. Things just blow out of proportion. So these are some of the behaviors. I don't know, as I go through those behaviors, can you think of some other behaviors that cause people to label children to be difficult?
Yeah, that's why he even kicked a cat, then he bite his brother. So he expressed himself along that channel of to us is a very so-called no good behavior. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, and those are the behaviors that cause them to be labeled as difficult. So, my approach to this discussion today is basically to look at it from the neurosemantics approach, to look at from the structure of what's happening down there, instead of just looking at the behavior, because there are many different behaviors. We just mentioned about 5 of them, but if you were to interview more parents, they can come up with many more behaviors, because children are very creative in those ways. So we are going to look at the structure of things, because once we identify the structure, then it is much easier to understand these behaviors and to notice what's the real problem. Now, what causes them to be labeled difficult? You know, when they behave in that way, it goes back to how we are using that label behavior. For example, can you think of a math problem that you couldn't solve? Do you label that problem as difficult?
Yeah, it is.
Just that when I think about that, I remember when I was studying for my MCE, there will be a math problem that I struggle with. So it's a difficult problem to me. And I went to my friend. He's the top student in the whole class. Wang, can you help me with this problem? You look at it, in less than 3 minutes, you'll solve the problem. It's easy. So the problem is not the issue. What's difficult is not the problem. Right? So that's the question. So is it the problem or the difficult? When we say what is a difficult problem, is it the problem that's difficult, or is it that we are the ones who's experiencing difficulty in solving that problem? So this is where, as human beings, we look at where else are we using this label difficult. We put it on difficult employees, difficult teachers, difficult parents, difficult boss.
Oh, difficult boss, that's very common.
Oh, that's very common. Oh, my boss is very difficult. Oh, my boss is impossible. So that's a very common label. We use that label. Now, the thing is that, why do we use this label? Hi, Bonnie. Glad to welcome you.
Hi, sorry. So late.
I need to say sorry because I did not send out the notification early enough. It was not until Jessica reminded me. Okay, so just discussing on how are we using this difficult label. What happens is that we human beings, we put that difficult label when we are experiencing difficulty in handling a certain behavior. So we need to come to this point to be clear that, so what's difficult is not that. what's difficult is inside here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. And we call it difficult. Why? Because they are not behaving in the way that we want them to behave. So
Betul.
this is something that I just want to draw our attention to this, because when we talk about difficult child, is it the child that's difficult, or are you the one who's experiencing the difficulty in handling the child's behavior? We need to come to this realization first when we talk about this thing called so-called difficult child. So that's why in the topic I put the open and close inverted commas on the word difficult, because it's not about the child. It's not the child that's difficult. It is about us having difficulty in handling the child's behavior. So when we parents experience that difficulty handling this child, and especially with the second child, you experience difficulty, you label, this is a difficult child. See, my elder child is so nice, so sweet. You are my difficult child. And guess what happened? When you label the child difficult, the child thinks, okay, so I'm a difficult child. So how do difficult child behave? And then the child will behave in a way that makes it more difficult for you. But isn't the child trying to make your wish come true?
So
Yes.
in this time, we are actually, Marzuki, we're actually saying that parents create that difficult child. In that sense, are we saying that?
No, I'm
Because
not going there. I'm not saying
Okay.
that the parents create the difficult child. It's just for
Okay.
us to realize that when we put this label came about our emotion, our sense, our
Yes.
feeling of difficulty, and we put that on the child.
Yes.
That difficulty, that feeling of difficulty came from the issue of us not knowing how to handle that behavior. So it is the child's behavior. We may or may not be creating that behavior. It comes from the child. It's just that because we don't know how to handle the behavior, we experience that difficulty. And then we label the child as difficult. So for me, the error is in the label. It is not in the child. It's not in you. The error is error labeling, because the moment you label the child difficult, one is belief confirmation. The child begins to confirm your belief. And two, you are putting the solution outside. So now it's about coming inside to look at the solution, because the problem is inside. The problem is the feel of difficulty. The child is not the problem. The problem is the feeling of difficulty. Ashim, you want to say something?
It's easy to see when it happens to someone else, but it's not easy to see when it happens to you.
Oh, yes. Well, both of us were having our confession moments, just me and Ashim.
We missed that part, is it?
You missed that part. The confession moment whereby he was talking about his second child, and I said, yes, that happened with me as well.
That's why the second child became difficult, because we were overwhelmed.
Yes, overwhelmed. The second child behaves in that way because the first child, especially when the gap between the first and the second child is less than 3 years.
Yes.
That happens because in the 3-year period, 2-3-year period, the first child is still going through the individuating phase. The individuating phase requires a lot of attention. So if the second child comes, the second child comes when mama has to give attention to the first, typically the second child is being ignored for at least the first 6 months of his or her life.
Wow.
So that is what causes the psychological issues in the second child, because the child experiences that I'm not being cared. But because the demand for caring, especially in the 6 months, is passive.
Yes.
In the first 6 months, when they need anything, it is more passive. The worst that they can do is cry. Because they have no mobility yet. So mother goes and takes care of the so-called difficult first child.
Okay, understand.
So in that way, the parents are the ones who create the second child syndrome. So when we talk about this label that we put on the child, the first part is to accept the fact that the label is put on the child not because of the child, but because we as the parent are experiencing that difficulty. So that label is not fair. That label is not correct. So we need to get back to the first principles to notice, okay, so what is the real problem? Yeah. So when do we face difficulty? So if I were to give an example, for example, like if you were to jump into an Olympic-sized swimming pool, would it be easy or difficult for you to swim? Bonnie, have you ever jumped into a 50-meter swimming pool?
I think it will be difficult, overwhelming.
Yeah. However, if we were to ask somebody like Marilyn, she would say that's easy peasy.
Yes, that's true.
And what's the difference?
She has a skill.
That's the issue over here. The skill, the competency. So when we do not have competency and we try to do something, then we experience that difficulty. When we do have the competency, it's easy peasy, right? So in the context of the child, the reason why the parent experiences difficulty in handling the child's behavior is just that with respect, so I do not want to overgeneralize. I do not like to use the word incompetent parents because parents are competent in many ways. So let me just bring to a specific issue that the reason why the parent is feeling difficulty in their body in handling a certain behavior. Maybe the behavior is defiance. Maybe the behavior is tantrum. The reason why the parent feels difficult in handling that behavior is because the parent is lacking a specific skill to handle that behavior. If the parent has that skill, will the parent face difficulty? Absolutely not. So that's why we need to first acknowledge that one, the problem is not the child. The actual problem, the real problem is that I, as the parent, do not yet have the skill to handle that behavior. So since it's more difficult to say that, okay, so what's the problem? The problem is that as the parent, I'm having difficulty to handle my child's behavior because I'm not competent enough. Since that's too long, so that's why parents take the easy path and say difficult child. However, accepting that the problem is my lack of competency is a pathway to solving the issue at hand. Because once we as parents accept that, okay, I'm feeling this difficulty because I'm not competent enough to handle that behavior, it opens the pathway for me to learn that skill that I'm not competent in. Because the moment I accept that I'm not competent, so I begin to go into the problem solving mode. So what's the skill that I need in order to solve that? So where do I go and get the skill? And once I get that skill, I can solve this behavior easily, and I remove that difficulty in my life. So I can remove the difficulty without removing the child. So I don't need to wait until the child changes the behavior to get rid of this difficult feeling that I have. So that, to me, is what we need to first do, to identify the problem. Because if we don't identify the problem, we'll never get to a solution. And the reason why many parents continue to face this difficulty in their children is because they put the problem out there. The child is the problem. So since the child hasn't changed, the problem is still there. The moment you bring it inside, that the problem is my feeling. I feel that. So that's the problem. And where does this problem come from? Because I'm not competent enough. I'm not skilled enough to handle that behavior. So resource conversation. So how do I get this skill? So I need to learn it. And as I apply it, hey, the child behaves in a different way. Yeah. So that's the second part to it, to be able to say to ourselves that it's not the child, that's the problem. And it's neither me that's the problem. It's just that I don't yet have the skill. So this is also something that parents need to realize. Sometimes we go into this trap, this guilt trap. So the child's not the problem, therefore it's me that's the problem. Then you get into another problem. To be able to detach person from behavior. That, okay, the problem is I'm lacking in my strategies to handle that behavior. That's all. I'm a good person. As a person, I'm wonderful. I'm a wonderful parent. It's just that as a wonderful parent, I'm lacking that particular skill. So in this way, now as a parent, you can begin to look for solutions, look for new skills in order to solve the problem at hand. Okay, any comments, Ashim, Bonnie?
It might be a one-on-one coaching with me already. So my daughter is, I label her picky eater. So it's actually not her, it's me. I have to find creative ways of making mealtime, or my cooking needs improvement. Because she takes too long to eat, I find. And that becomes a problem for me. So I'm trying to find creative ways to deal with that. So today, instead of rice, I gave her bread. So that's a creative solution, right? Maybe mix it up a little bit.
Yes.
Maybe rice is boring for her all the time.
Yeah. It's just that sometimes you need to realize that maybe your daughter is the kind who, if I were to use the word gerbil, you know gerbil, that
it's sikit-sikit lah, makan sikit-sikit. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, dia suka makan sikit-sikit.
That's my grandson.
It's like packing all day, but not really eating kind of mode, right? Yeah. But then the FATHER gets over paranoid that the daughter is not eating enough. And then the mother gets STRESS because of it. And then it becomes a huge cycle of guilt and blame, you know. So actually, I realized that a lot of the problem is not her, it's the way the parents handle each other as well.
Exactly.
And becomes a huge impact because we are not actually listening to the child. We're actually having our own fears put onto her.
Yes.
you know, the
Yes.
fears of I'm not good enough because I'm not feeding her well enough. She's not eating like a whole meal like rice, fish, and veggie. You know, that's how the imagination of a parent is like, oh, she has to eat like this, you know.
Yes.
Rather than she eats what she needs and she's happy.
Yeah.
It's what she needs, not what we need, we think. And we had a lot of episodes between me and my husband because we are both very vocal.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have different way of parenting, good and bad and worst.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see each other do it, we are actually the problem. We cannot figure out our own parenting styles and merge it, and then it becomes like it becomes stressful for us.
Mm.
And when I handle her, I become stressed. Faham tak?
Yes.
It's not just one thing, you know. It's like, oh, is this just one thing? And this belum involve the mother, grandmother, and grandfather lagi.
Mm.
So if it's like when we deal with a child, it's like it's all our worst dreams, nightmares, and fears, everything into one. It's like these are most prized possessions. Like, okay, I cannot screw up, kind of thing.
So this is where, for me, it is a clash of expectation. You have a certain expectation of how a child needs to behave. Your husband has a certain expectation about how the child needs to behave. The grandfather, the grandmother, the uncle, the granduncle, all have certain expectations. Have you asked the child about how they want to behave?
No. Usually no. Sometimes yes. Hari tu bapak dia macam overwhelmed lah sebab sugar low kan, fasting kan juga. And then he can't take it when she gives him the silent treatment. She gives him the silent treatment and he can't take it. And I'm like, oh my God, you can't deal with this.
How old is she?
She's 5. She knows how to give people silent treatment.
So smart.
She's so smart that way. I kena cakap bahasa Melayu sebab dia kat tepi kan. So
Okay.
bahasa Melayu tak faham sangat. So bapak dia cakap, actually you're right. He can't deal with his emotions because she's giving the silent treatment and he's going berserk. Faham tak? So
Yes.
it's terbalik tau.
Hmm.
And then dia ignore je tau. Then dia cakap, you are acting like a child. But my heart thinking like, she is a child.
Good one there.
Tapi I tak boleh menyampuk lagi lah sebab dia tengah marah kan. So habis ada kuda, semua everything settle. They settle themselves. They hug it out. And then lepas tu bila dia dah calm down, my HUSBAND, cakap dengan dia, hello, she is a child kan, betul tak? Awak tu sugar low tau. Lepas tu dia cakap, yes, I'm so sorry. And then I apologize to her. But we are the parents that when we do wrong, we apologize. Because we are not perfect. So we don't expect ourselves to be perfect.
Yes.
And I think it's a process of communication where we keep talking to each other like, you know, mom's not perfect, dad's not perfect. And it's okay that we fight, but, you know, we work things out.
Yes.
That's the kind of message I think I'm giving her. It's okay if you get angry. It's okay if you, you know, make a mistake, but we learn to communicate and deal with it better. So inshallah lah.
Good. Thank you, Wani. Hi, Jessica. I notice you coming in. I need to thank you for sending me that text message. Yes, I didn't send out the link. So glad that you did that because I was sitting here at 2:30. Nobody's in here yet. Okay, so how do we deal with that? Yeah, how do we deal with those behaviors? And for the benefit of Bonnie and Jessica, Hashim and I, we were discussing about certain behaviors that when the child exhibits, we tend to label the child as difficult. The behavior of being defiant, being fussy, hurting other people, excessive anger, tantrums, etc., etc. So, however, those are some example of behaviors. When the child behaves in those ways, we tend to label the child as difficult. Yeah. So basically, we are using the difficult label when the child doesn't behave in the way that we want them to behave. So this is the child's behavior, and this is what we want them to behave. So when they do not want to behave in this way, we say that the child is difficult. So the issue basically is a conflict of interest, isn't it? So we know what we want the child to do, but the question is, do we know what the child wants to do? So that's why I asked you that question just now. What does the child want? To take a look from the child's viewpoint. Do you know what the child wants? Now, let's pick on some of those behaviors. Defiance. Yeah? One of the behaviors that cause us to label a child difficult is defiant. They defy what we want them to do. The child does not want to do what you want him or her to do. So, as a parent, in order to resolve that, because when we talk about conflicts of interest, we need to understand what is their interest. So what does the child want? And the thing is, how can you make doing this, what you want, how can you make doing this more enjoyable for the child than doing this? So to be able to look at it from that way. So if you don't know what they want, then you cannot make this one more desirable. So typically the parents tend to use their bigger size, bigger authority. No, you must do this. You stop doing that and you must do this. Without even knowing what it is that they want over here. Okay. So when it comes to defiance, to be able to identify, okay, so this is what you want. So the question that as parents we need to ask, how can I make this more desirable to the child than this? Bonnie, you were about to say something.
It's easy, the answer, all they want. It's always play. They want to have a good time. It's always from play to play. So if I want to get her to bathe, I must find a playful way to do it. I'll give her some time, like 5 minutes. And then if I want her to read something, I have to make it playful, like a game. It's always a game. In their brain, it doesn't exist anything else except let's play.
Yes.
And for parents, sometimes it's so hard to get into that frame because we are so not used to that word play. except Marzuki. Marzuki is good with play.
You see, as far as the child is concerned, they cannot make any differentiation between play and learning. Because play is learning, learning is play. They learn through play. And when they play, they learn. So play and learning is one and the same. And as far as the child is concerned, learning is a survival skill. If they don't learn, they don't survive. So that's why little children, they are, you notice that they are more interested in playing than eating. Because eating is survival for now. Learning is survival for long term. So that's why, as far as the child is concerned, play is more important. So that's why, as parents, our challenge is how to make the activity that you want them to do more playful than the activity that they are engaged in. So because they are attention driven, they are not driven by intention. Intentional behavior is adult behavior. Children's behavior is attentional. They are their mind goes to whatever takes their attention at that particular point in time. So when it comes to defiant behavior, the solution, the reason why I give the solution in this I would say structural point of view, is because in order to create that desire in this new behavior, it requires different strategies depending on the developmental stage of the child. So you can have a child at the age of 12, you need to have a different strategy to make a certain behavior more desirable as compared to a 5-year-old. However, the principle is simple. Make this behavior more desirable to the child, and the child will go towards it. I think you remember me giving you the example that when Grasshopper was potty training at that time, she has this habit of holding her pee, not wanting to go to the toilet. She doesn't want to go to the toilet. Then I realized that she's a very competitive girl. So whenever I notice the signs that she might be ready to go to the toilet, instead of asking her to go to the toilet, I'd say to her, "I'll race you to the toilet." And without even thinking, she just ran to the toilet. Now, since she's already there, then she's ready to go to the toilet.
Ya kan, toilet pun tak nak pergi kan? Nak main je.
Your little daughter is doing that as well?
Yeah, every time it's like, no, I don't need to go, I need to go. And then after that last minute, I need to go, I need to go.
And do you know why she does that?
Yeah, because she doesn't want to leave what she's doing, right? It's the play. So I need to just bring her because in her mind, it's like she doesn't need it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because she's so engrossed.
It's same with the big business that she doesn't want to go and sit down in the toilet. So sekarang the new technique is I have to read a book outside and she will do it. Then only she goes now regularly because I'm reading a book. So I realized that they don't want to do it because it's boring to sit down, right?
Yes.
So she figured it out. She asked me to read a book and it's fine. Hello, Malaysia.
Hi, I'd like to say welcome to Sue. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad that you're able to join us, Sue. Completed your errand. Now, next point, we look at fussiness. I don't know, Bonnie, were you in when I was talking about how Grasshopper was so fussy?
Oh, no, not yet.
She was so fussy that when she eats, she doesn't want the food to touch each other. So you have to put the rice, chicken away from the rice, the vegetable away from the rice and the chicken. Don't let it touch. If by accident Mama were to spill some gravy on the rice, he'll go, "But Mama, it's dirty." So gravy on rice means dirty rice. So rice must be white. Okay. Now, fussiness is basically about what's important for the child. Yeah. So in the case of Grasshopper at that time, what's important for her is that things are kept apart. So that's what's important for her. So if you want her to eat the rice, you've got to take it separately. The rice, thank you for your note, Sue. The rice, you got to feed her the rice, you got to feed her the chicken, then you got to feed her the vegetables separately. So that is important to keep things in their proper place. Hashim used the term SOP. So you have the SOP about doing things. So when, yeah, Jessica, she's very organized. Imagine even now, she goes to the supermarket, let's say a can of peanut butter. She cannot stand seeing the labels not facing forward. So if you were to stand around there for a few minutes, she'll look around and she'll adjust so that all the labels face forward. And grandfather can fully understand that because grandfather has to curb his need to straighten the labels as well. Okay, so when it comes to fussy children, you need to show to the child that the next activity that they need to do. Yep. Remember, it's conflict of interest. This is what they want, and this is what you want. So all that you need to do is using their logic, using the way that they think to show that this is now more important than that. So that is why parents need to be creative, needs to be intelligent. So it's about showing that this is also important, or this is more important. That's why you want to do it this way. Yeah. So another example, hurting other people. When it comes to hurting another people, the first thing that you need to check, does the child know that the behavior hurts people? Because it could be that the child doesn't know, clueless. Again, with grasshopper, she has this, when she was about 1 going to 2 years old, she has this habit, whenever she's excited, she bites. And during that time, I had lots of scars on my arm to show for that. But she bit because of excitement, not because she wants to cause a hurt. Whenever she's excited about something, she'll clench her teeth. And so happen grandfather's arm is there, then she'll clench her teeth on grandfather's arms or thighs or body, wherever. So the first thing that you need to check is that, does the child know that that behavior hurts other people? Because there is the likelihood that the child doesn't know that the behavior hurts others. So if the child begin to understand that that behavior hurts others, so to look into what is it that the child wants that causes him or her to behave in that way. So again, it's about what it is the child wants. They want something is in between them achieving what they want. So what is it that they want that causes them to behave this way? So for you to be able to facilitate them getting what they want without behaving in the way that hurts others. Because hurting others, it is not intentional. It is a reactive process, and it could be a reaction because that's the strategy that they have learned somewhere, that in order to get this, I need to do this. They may be unaware that doing this hurts others, but that's what they have learned. So to help the child to learn new strategy, this is what they want, this is the behavior that hurts others. Now to teach the child a different strategy in order to get at what they want. So again, it comes out to understanding what it is that the child wants. And another behavior that we talk about is excessive anger. The child may be triggered into anger. And again, going into what is the source of that anger? Can you remove the threat that is triggering the anger? Because anger is our reaction when something that is valuable to us is threatened. So we feel that something is threatening something that is valuable to us. For example, your child is valuable to you. So if somebody were to be walking around swinging a walking stick, that may cause you to be angry because somebody swinging a walking stick might accidentally hit your child. So the threat of damage to what's valuable to you will cause you to react in anger. So similarly, a child will behave in that particular way. So understand. So what's the valuable thing? What is valuable to them? What seems to be a threat to that? So how can you remove that threat? Because by helping the child to remove that threat, now what's valuable to them is no more threatened, then that will be able to dissipate their anger. So that comes to the next point. Do you have the skill in helping a child to release his or her anger? So these are some of the examples that we talk about, problem behavior. And when we look at from the structural point of view, it is all about the conflict of interest, the child wanting what he or she wants, and you wanting them to do something different. So the defiance is when they cannot see the importance of what it is that they want. Sorry, what it is that you want. They want to do this. They want to continue playing. You want your child to go and have a shower. So the child defies you. The only reason why the child defies you is because the child cannot see the importance of having a shower now, because I'm having a lot of fun playing this. So unless you increase the fun and joy factor of this, you'll not be able to get the child to go through there willingly. So if you were to drag her screaming and kicking, she'll be kicking and screaming throughout the shower. Okay, so if you notice, children do what's joyful to them. When they defy, when they throw tantrum, when they are fussy about things, is that those behaviors, are those behaviors joyful to them? So those behaviors are not joyful to them, because when they behave in that way, they are not happy anymore. And because when children are happy, they are doing things happily, they are so joyful, they are doing things, they don't even bother you when they are so joyful about something. So when there is that conflict, and during that conflict, they are not happy anymore. So why are they behaving in a behavior that is not happy to them? So that again, we come up to the point of desire and where they are right now. What is the desired outcome? So this is what they want. The reason why they behave in that way, something is in the way of them achieving their desire. So this is a need to do something that is joyful to them. That's the need. So there is an unmet need that's causing them to behave in that way. So basically, when they behave in ways that come out as angry or tantrum, all that they're telling you is that they want to get something. I want something. And because they may not have that skill at that point in time, they need your help. So basically, those behaviors, when I look at those behaviors of defying, of being angry, the way that I look at it now, not before. Before I just brush it aside and all that. But now I see it as a way of the child asking for help, saying to you, "Help, Mama, I want that. Can you please help me get that?" So those behaviors are basically cries for help, because they do not have enough strength, enough competency, enough skill in order to get what they want. So that's why they behave in that way. And guess what? Sometimes this is where parents unwittingly program their children to behave in that way. And the children learn that that is the only way that I can ask my parents to help. For example, the child asks you, "Mama, can I play?" and gets ignored. "Mama, can I play?" gets ignored. "Mama, can I play?" gets ignored. Many times get ignored, and then the child because remember I mentioned to you, children are excellent pattern detectors. They realize the pattern of asking, "Mama, can I play?" doesn't work. So the child tries another pattern. maybe starts jumping, maybe starts screaming, and then notices, when I scream, Mama gives me attention. So all that the child is doing is applying the strategy that works. The child doesn't know that screaming is difficult as far as Mama is concerned. But the child knows, when I scream, I get what I want. So if I need help to get what I want, I scream. So that's why they behave in that way. So when, as parents, we have the skill to understand what it is that our children want, to be able to detect it early enough, and to be able to provide that to the child before the child goes into the behaviors that we consider as difficult behaviors. So at the core of it is understanding. Okay, any comments? Hashim or Jessica or Bonnie or Sue, any comments? What do you think about that?
So the problem is not out there, it's in here. It's in the parent that that associate that difficulty rather than in him or in her. It is assigned to the child.
Yeah. Thank you, Hashim. And Jessica, so what do you want to do in order to become more creative?
No need to be creative already. She's 16 years old. Huh? Yeah. One thing I can remember is she is like your grasshopper. But she don't bite, she slap.
Yes.
And it's very hard. So painful. Then one day, I think it's my sister. My sister got hit so hard from her. She slapped it back. Quite hard also, but not as hard as what she used her whole full strength on us. I think we all know she want to play, but she don't know how to control the strength. So we just give her that slap, and suddenly she gets stunned. Then after that, we never get the hard hit from her already. Then she know it's very painful. Then we ask her, how painful?
How old?
That time, I think she's 3 years old or 2. Yeah.
You see, at 3 years old, probably he or she? She doesn't know how to control the strength of her hand. She doesn't.
Yeah, we all know she don't know how to control her strength, but she like to slap. Cannot tahan lah. How can?
Just like grasshopper's happy hit lah.
Yeah, true. So one day my sister came back, so we go for, always she came back is a happy moment, and she come her hand up. Then my sister got it. What? She hit her back. Then asked her, how? Is it painful? Then she's stunned. She didn't cry, but she gets stunned.
Wow.
Then we tell her, very painful. Then after that, she will never slap. She will never slap.
She's a very fast learner. Yeah? Very fast learner, because one time she's able to learn that, because some children, they take quite some time in order to understand that behavior causes hurt to others. So
yeah, we all know she's smart. She's just lazy. Very, very lazy. Anyway, now she's grown, 15, 16?
Okay.
We let her to learn from her own behavior experience. Yeah.
So, sorry, Jessica, go ahead.
No. Yeah, up to you.
Yeah, thank you. Bonnie, anything you'd like to say?
Jessica, you sound so like cynical. Like
Yeah, I used to be the one that discipline guru at home.
Oh, I have a problem with the discipline part. So my mom is the discipline queen, the grandparent, and then so the way we bring up our child is different from one generation to another generation, and a lot. So the impact that she gives is I'm spoiling my child, you know, that and because I allow my child to speak out, speak back, you know, and of course there is a limit. And of course my tolerance level is much higher than my mom's level, and sometimes she gets over, and I'll go like, see, that's why you know, this so and so parents is like that. Then the mother will slap them so they don't do that. And then sometimes I feel bad for myself because it's like, am I spoiling her by giving her too much freedom to choose and to say? Because I give her a lot of freedom, and so there's always a conflict in my head because I brought up differently. You know, my mom keeps telling me differently, and then yet at the same time, my own instinct is I want her to speak up. I want her to have a voice, and I want her to choose. You know, and but how much do we allow her to choose? So again, you know, there's always a challenge for yourself, like you said, your own skill, you know, our own skill set as parents. Well, it's not easy, okay? I don't know how some people make it look so easy. I'm like, oh.
So that's why we mentioned earlier that parenting is basically a complex set of skills. It requires a complex set of skills. So to not diminish that, because some people, they tend to undervalue parenting, saying, oh, parenting is easy, as easy as making babies and all that. No, it requires a complex set of skills. And I was just as I was preparing for this, I was going through what are the skill sets that parents need in order to handle children when their behaviors cause difficulty to them. Basically, what I listed down here was, one is the skill of communicating and relating. Next is the skill of coaching, the skill of selling. So Bonnie, to sell the shower instead of the plate. The skill of selling.
Today I had to sell why I'm on Zoom to be a better parent instead of sitting down beside her and listening to her show with her.
Yes.
So I said I let her listen. She's very smart. She said I listened only 1 year. The other year I take up my earbud and listen to her show.
Wow.
So she's negotiating. So I said, then I let her listen to the talk. I said, it makes me a better parent, a better mom. I said, why don't you let me listen, and then after this, I'll sit down and see your show with you. So it's always your teacher is a process of negotiation. So we negotiate and compromise.
Yeah.
And also when I have to do Zoom calls, I have to do it with her. I make it a norm that she will interrupt my Zoom, and it's normal that if she interrupts, it's okay for me to take a moment for my training on Zoom and to talk to her in front of everybody and tell everyone that this is normal. When you have a 5-year-old, they will interrupt you and they will want your attention, and you can just stop and say it's normal. Because you know, you'll never do any meetings or any Zoom calls, right?
Yeah.
You'll never do anything because they will want attention. They cannot be perfect and not you know, be perfect child, sit down. Although you pray. I just say, oh, please do not want to go to the toilet.
Yeah, because as far as the child is concerned, I would say before the age of 10, they have not created this, in neurosemantics, we call it matrix, but this concept of time. So as far as they are concerned, there is only now. So that's why saying to the child, wait 5 minutes, wait later, especially 5 years old, that hasn't entered the vocabulary yet. They do not have yet that concept of time. So yes, so when they come to you, it is there and then. That moment is the most important moment to them. They cannot afford to wait. Yeah. So lots of skills that we need to have as parents and grandparents. And skill of negotiating, influencing. The other is the skill of framing and reframing. So to frame this activity that they're doing that is so enjoyable to them, and how you can influence them to make this activity going to have the shower, to reframe this activity to become much more attractive to them. So that's the skill of framing and reframing. So to deconstruct the frame that this is boring, to create a new frame that this is really exciting. And maybe this, I think, critical skill that parents need to have is the skill of managing our states. So whenever that we feel that difficult to deal with this behavior, to be able to manage that state away, to go back into the state of calm, loving, kind parent, to get into that state and to be able to relate with your child from that state. Because if you relate with your child from the state of being harassed, from the state of uncertainty and all that, then it escalates the situation. You ask the child to do something, the child resists, you get angry. So that anger will increase the resistance from the child, and that escalates into World War III. So the skill of state management to be calm. The more angry, for example, one of the issues that you may face with a child is excessive anger. The more angry the child gets, the more you want to be operating from the state of calmness, because you cannot bring the child to calmness if you are also in the state of anger. And that's a major mistake that most parents make. They tend to they think that they can overpower the child with a bigger anger. I say best of luck doing that. Because in terms of persistence, I noticed that children are really persistent little creatures.
Yeah, they're like COVID. Keep on mutate and immute and mutate and immute and mutate. From I seeing a girl staying with me from 0 to 16 now. Okay, fine. Understand. Truly.
Okay, probably I would just like to, because coming up to fall already, coming up to the summary of the session that we have today. So when we are faced with behaviors that cause us to feel difficult, we need to realize that it is not the child that's difficult. It is us feeling the difficulty in our body. And that feeling of difficulty is caused by, at that moment, we are lacking in skill or lacking in strategy in order to handle that particular behavior. So it's not the child. The child is not the problem. It is our competency in handling that behavior. That's the problem in the moment. And to be able to be compassionate with ourselves, also to also accept that I am also not the problem. I am a good person. I am well. I am sane. It's just that I am lacking in that particular competency at this moment. When I have that competency, I can help my child to get what he or she wants in a much better way, in a much calmer and harmonious way. So that's the first thing that I just want to mention. Now, the actual specific strategies that we use for example, a child who is a child who is what's the word, throwing tantrum, or a child who has excessive anger, a child who is excessively fussy about things. How we deal with those behaviors will depend on the child itself, will depend on the developmental stage of the child. So there is no one specific way that you handle a tantrum. There is no one specific way you handle a child who is fussy. So we need to learn the different ways, and it will need to change as the child develops. So the strategies need to change as the child goes through the developmental stages. So as a parent, we just need to keep on learning new skills. And I mentioned to you about the skills of communicating and relating, skill of coaching, selling, negotiating, influencing, framing, reframing, and state management. So those are what we are looking at. So again, to look into the behavior of the child and not label that behavior as difficult because we feel that difficulty. So it's just accepting that I am not skilled enough to handle that behavior now. That's why I feel it difficult. I need to learn new skill. And what I suggested earlier is for us to be able to reframe that behavior. And now what I'm doing is that I reframe those behaviors as cries for help from the child. The child is crying for help. Please help me. Yeah. Maybe if I can give one example about excessive anger. Grasshopper's younger brother, Muhammad Pocoyo, he at one time, at one stage of his life, he burst into this excessive anger. And when his mama had talked with him later, you know what? When he burst into that anger, he is scared of himself for being angry. So when he's angry, he's scared that he became angry because he thought that he's going to turn into a monster and never become who he really is. So the child doesn't behave in that way just to make life difficult for you. The child is trying to find strategies to sort his or her life. So that's why when we look at the child's behavior, being highly demanding, being excessively angry or defying, when we look at it from, my child is asking for help. So what can I do in order to help? So that changes our frame altogether. And I hope that by changing that frame allows us to respond in ways that are more resourceful and more developmental for our children. Yeah. Okay, so before we end, I'd just like to ask for a few words if you want to comment about what we have discussed for today. I'll just go to the bottom of my screen. Sue, are you able to say anything, or that will be too much of a distraction for you? Okay, so we'll skip that. And Jessica, any comments from you?
No.
No comment. Thank you, Jessica.
I'm attending today because I missed many sessions already.
Thank you. Really appreciate you being here today. And Bonnie, how about you?
Good luck to me. A long way more to go, Jessica. You're almost done already.
Yeah, almost. Why I feel like so still a long way.
A long way. Mine's only 5 going on 13. Talk like
5 is fun. Just play with them. Try when they are 10. You vomit blood, I tell you.
Vomit blood. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right.
Thank you, Bonnie. And thank you, Sue, for your comments there. Yeah, you may still find difficulty in order to to put in the comment. And Hashim, how about you?
Yeah, I think from today's session, it gives me a way of creating or having more creative ways of communicating with my grandchild, especially he is now 4 years old, and I'm trying to make him pastime to be more fun. So he always said, "Oh, I don't want to take bath. I want to do something else." So now I can see how to make it more fun to have bath. Then he will love that to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for being here again. Jessica, thank you for your text. It helped everyone. I apologize that I failed to send the link for this session. So thank you, Hashim, Bonnie, Jessica, and Sue for being here. I look forward to seeing all of you again in our next session. I will send out the notice to you. So with that, thank you. Goodbye. God bless. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.